All right, teammates, we are back once again. If this is your first time listening to the Move Swiftly podcast, welcome to the number one podcast on innovative teamwork. Great to have you. Looking forward to having you back for more. Hopefully, this new year has been going great for you. Hopefully, you're setting your goals and hitting benchmarks for your goals. As you guys know, we don't do resolutions around here. We do goals, actual attainable goals to actual measurable results. So, today, and regular listeners, you guys already know how I get down, man. We've been doing this now, what, 5 years, 6 years at this point, and every single time you hit the play button on this show, you know that there's whatever the obstacle is, whatever the challenge is, whatever is in your way, or you feel like is in your way. We are here to indirectly tell you you are not going through it alone. And today, I have a lady, Miss Simone Giangiordano, who is going to eradicate any excuses, anything that you may have been thinking that's holding you back in life. You better remove it right now. Because when I tell you the amount of things that she has had to live through that you would have never known, and she wakes up, she walks around with a smile, does not allow herself to have the victim mentality and all that, even though there's so many health challenges. I mean, there was one story you told Simone, right? You were just breathing and you had to end up in the hospital. So, I couldn't imagine having to deal with that much, health scares and all that. She has a great concept in terms of being courageous, boldly speaking your truth, and finding that work-life balance. So, Simone, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me here today, Aswan. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
I mean, let's just start right there, man, because as a former football player, a coach, a scouted. I've been involved with athletics and fitness virtually my entire life. And there'd be times where I'd be playing, and then you have a teammate. We do the running, the conditioning. It's like, oh, coach, I got asthma. Coach, I got asthma. I can't do it, coach. I got asthma. And again, some of them actually did. Some of them did. They're getting out of it. But you grew up with a lot of different health challenges that caused, just basic things to happen to you where you were concerned. So can you kind of speak on your upbringing just a little bit to kind of set the frame, set the foundation for the conversation so you understand, so people understand what you had to deal with, some of the challenges that you dealt with growing up before, you built up what you built.
Yeah, I think I was really super fortunate in that my father had a lot of health challenges. He had a heart attack early 40s. He had double bypass heart surgery before it was really known to be a thing. I mean, they kept patients unconscious for 3 whole days. No family could see or anything. 20 years later, you're in there an hour later.
Wow.
And he had cancer a couple times, and there was never any pity or self-pity. There was just, let's band together, let's help. It just almost was just a normal part of life. Here's this challenge. Let's make the most of it. In fact, I have so many great memories at hospitals with using humor, just being there for each other, really truly being there.
Mhm.
So I consider myself very fortunate that health challenges were not looked at as this really bad thing. They just were part of life.
Wow, man, that's
So,
that's heavy, man. So my father, since I was in middle school all the way through my freshman year in college, he didn't have a kidney, and I remember it
mhm,
shook all of us up, especially me being that impressionable age, and
yes,
he had the same mentality that you described it. He's
yeah,
just going through it, doing the dialysis, never allowed himself to be a victim, woke up
mhm,
dialysis, and he ran his own business. So he has it. I remember him putting his briefcase, going to work every day, and never allowed himself or his kids to feel like this was going to be some pity party. In fact, I remember him
yeah,
telling me one time, "Don't be telling people about my chronic. I don't need no pity from anyone." So
mhm,
that's shout out to Pop.
yeah.
Both of you. That's
Yeah. And I was also the youngest of 6 children. I had four, it was 4 boys, then 2 girls. So there were so
and
many
this is in
broken
Pittsburgh,
bones.
correct?
Hour and a half north, I lived in Pittsburgh for many years, but I grew up in a small town north of there.
Exactly, and
So
that's like that steel, like blue collar,
yes,
ethic city. Yeah.
yes, many broken bones, many hospital runs only when there's like really serious things that you can't really wait till the next day,
Yeah.
and so forth. So that was just part of my normal. And it's interesting because my husband, they never had a broken bone or anything in any health thing because there was such health, or that any health thing was a big, big deal. And it's a different mindset,
Mhm.
can be a different mindset. So that really played a role. I learned very early on that some of the most compassionate people and most giving and caring people just had so many health challenges, but you didn't see that in them. You saw the love and
Mhm.
support. So that really was a huge, huge gift. So
Oh,
I actually was born with some lung issues. And my very first memory that I have, I woke up in the middle of the night. I was probably three years old, and I remember struggling to breathe and kind of making my way to the hallway in the dark. And I just remember my mother swooping me up into her arms, taking me into the kitchen, giving me this medicine. And, once I got that breathing issue got under control, being put back in bed.
mhm.
So again, it was this caring, nurturing around it. And the next day you just go on.
Right,
So that having had those kinds of health issues as a child, sometimes people outgrow them, sometimes you don't.
right,
So mine just kind of kept layering upon till if we fast forward to last day of my corporate career,
right.
at that point, I had a bad accident, severe neck and back injuries. I'd already been working out of a conference room for a year because I couldn't do the walk between buildings. And
Right.
I just wanted to go get coffee. And it's a block away. And I was trying to stay awake, to be honest.
Well,
uh,
I know
yeah.
that feeling. I just had a cup just ago, so I'm not like wired like this all day. Trust me, I
Yeah.
need the coffee too.
Yeah. I was doing system conversion, system projects, rolling out products to 3,000 people. So it was a pretty intense job. And I got down, beautiful sunny day. Was on the busy street sidewalk of downtown Pittsburgh, and traffic zooming by and pedestrians were passing me. And I just was trying not to fall down. I was leaning against the wall, and I just literally could not get my one leg in front of the other. And a couple coworkers came walking by and they saw me. They wanted to call an ambulance. I'm like, no, 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 please don't. Because at this point, I didn't want the expense. I didn't want the that kind of attention. And I didn't want a bunch of expensive tests with no more answers because I'd already been trying to get answers for a couple years. So they got me back. We called my husband. He came and got me, and he's like, "Why don't you just leave this job? It's killing you." I was like, "What?" It's like my career. But I did. I went in and gave 5 weeks notice the next day.
So when it comes to, when you go back to the 3-year-old story that you told, and then you
Yeah.
kind of think about what school was like, competing for sports had to be tough, maybe making friends and all that kind of stuff. How would you say things were through those years, and what landed you in this corporate role that was so intense? You know,
Yeah.
clearly it seemed like, hey, if you have this situation, now I'm going to try to do something that's a little more relaxing, or I'm going to sort of cater my life steps that's going to
Yeah.
be work around my health issues.
I don't feel it really impacted friendships so much.
Right.
Even though looking back, I remember there was times I was getting ready to go to a friend's birthday party and I was real susceptible to blood poisoning. So I'd have to take care of that for an hour and arrive late. It didn't really, it was just part of my life. My
Mhm.
friends are my friends, and I don't feel like in high school or grade school that really impacted. I mean, there was even times I broke out from the sun, literally allergic reaction. So I would have to stay in for recess in third and fourth grade at times. But I love
Now,
to
were you
read.
able to were you interested in extracurricular activities outside?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was
Were
in
you
a
able to,
lot. So
right.
these were like sporadic things. It actually, I was allergic, found out later it was the sunscreen I was allergic to, the paraben stuff, the chemicals. So in conjunction with the sun. So
Mhm.
I don't feel like it really impacted me in high school and grade school and stuff, even though I had to sit back and cut some things out. I was an achiever. I was valedictorian, so I love to learn.
Yeah.
So my focus was always on learning. And I wanted to be in basketball and volleyball. I couldn't be. I was in track. When I was in eighth grade, we had our junior high relay team competed with the high school team
Mhm.
and actually beat them.
There you go. Yeah.
But
Say it with your chest, talk your stuff.
so I love sports. I mean, I grew up in the country riding dirt bikes and all that. So
Yeah, I mean, listen, I grew up I know that area. I know there's quite a few people
yeah,
in that area, Steel Town. There's a lot of pride that comes with
yeah.
Steelers and the way they go around.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And it can be a lot of fun to be involved in that.
Mhm.
But my track career was a few months at most. I got to where it was so painful to try to walk. My last day of track, I was 14. I remember just being in absolute tears with the knee pain, absolute tears. And it's through high school, probably the only thing I actually ever quit
Mhm.
because you still count, you finish what you start.
Exactly.
And I couldn't, and I couldn't lay on my stomach to sleep. The pain was so intense. And I did end up having surgeries. So it was disappointing that I couldn't be in basketball and volleyball and those kinds of team sports because as you know, obviously there's so much value to that kind of team. So I became involved in marching band and put
No.
my efforts there.
Oh
Um,
man, I hate to cut you off there, but so this past as we're recording this, by the way, guys, January 6th. So last week I went to the Relecquist Bowl in Tampa. I actually
okay.
I'm a huge Michigan football fan.
Oh, I
And
went to Michigan.
yeah. Huh?
I went to Michigan.
Go blue, baby. Go blue. Oh, man, you would have loved it because so they played Alabama in the Relecquist Bowl in Tampa. And I was, I stayed for all the bowl festivities. I was there all weekend and I saw the band there and how much pride they had. And I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir with you, but the parents and seeing how the marching band and how that whole thing came together. Because listen, most of the time during those years I was playing. So I missed
Yeah.
all of that as a player. And that was the work that the band does was something I was probably the most impressed with because we had the
Hmm.
beach day, they performed there. The next day they had the Battle of the Bands. Even before I got there, they did a performance at Busch Gardens. And then when I went to the tailgating, that the Gator game, they performed there. And then all game, all 3 hours, they're
Out
Oh,
of the victors.
I might get off trip if we start talking about that experience. But yes, speak to us a little bit
Well,
about that marching band a little bit.
well, that's all very relevant because I barely made it through my senior year with band. I was still the pain was becoming
This is in
overwhelming.
high school.
Yes, in high school. So I I went to Penn State, started in biochem, but then I transferred to
You can
Michigan,
say it. You can say
and then
it.
I transferred to
All right, listen,
Michigan.
Penn State, shout out to Penn State. Y'all in it this year. I can't say nothing. I talked a lot of smack. I talked a whole lot a year ago. Y'all got it. I mean, you still got to be noted. And then what's crazy, I just had this conversation, is Notre Dame, Ohio State, Penn State, all three of them are in. The only thing that's missing is Michigan State. And we'd be like,
Mm,
we have
yeah.
biggest so right now, us Michigan fans, we're big Longhorn people. Longhorn, only chance, only chance we got left to,
Yeah.
hey, don't let one of these after we win it of all time of all teams. So anyway, go ahead.
So Michigan, it was actually required. I was majoring in music, and it was actually a requirement to be in the marching band. And
Oh,
they do the high step.
yeah.
And that's intense. I mean, you're lifting your knees every there. I couldn't even do that at that point. I had a knee surgery that went wrong, and I had complete atrophy in my left leg. I dragged that leg. I couldn't get out of a chair without my hands. I'd actually wait for people to leave the room
Right.
to try to get up so they wouldn't see me struggling so much.
Hmm.
So I had a medical exclusion from that requirement, but I would have loved to have been because it would have been Rose Bowl and all that. It would have been amazing.
Yes.
But
All right. You froze. Oh,
uh,
okay. Yeah,
uh,
you froze a little
yeah.
bit.
So so I was saying about with Michigan, it was a marching band was a requirement,
Yeah.
and I could not do it. I was struggling to stand up. I would wait to leave, get up and leave sometimes till other people were out of the room so they wouldn't see me struggling so much to try to stand. And I had complete atrophy. So I forget where I was going because my screen froze. But yeah, that's where you asked me about relationships in high school. And it just was. But in Michigan, I started to see the differences. I started to feel the emotional differences
Hmm.
at that point because it was a whole, I didn't know anybody there when I went. And I stopped going to dinner because it was up a little incline and I couldn't keep up with friends walking and I was falling at this point a lot.
So
So I would just take my lunch and stay at the music school all day. So I
now,
wouldn't have to walk and fall.
so during that time though, because that those are years that you really got to sink or swim, regardless of, I mean, it's
Hmm.
dog eat dog world during those
Yes.
years of bachelors, 18 to 22. Anyone that's been through it knows exactly what I'm talking about. What drew you to the corporate world? Like, how were you able to manage
Yep.
years? Because, and then I'll just tell you, as a person now that looks at what you do now, your brand, and I'm listening to you talk, you have a way of balancing out life. You have a way of balancing out work, business, personal, and then, the fact that you were in the band and what I
Yeah.
saw with the band and how they're able to balance things out. Walk us through some
Hmm.
of those lessons in those 4 years that led you to the corporate environment.
Um, Keep going. You're going to have challenges, keep going. And I knew I loved to learn. And there is a very strong, getting the word, statistically, people who are good at music tend to also be good at logic and math.
Hmm.
So I got drawn into the banking industry from that perspective. And how did it really come about? I had huge student loans. I was putting myself through it, out of state tuition independently. So I came out with huge loans.
Hmm.
So I went in and I, long story, I ended up losing interest in the music at that point because of financial situations. I transferred to a school where I wasn't as challenged
Mhm.
and I wasn't in that thriving learning environment where everybody was, it was very competitive, but not to be number one. It was just competitive to learn from each other and come together and put together something really beautiful. And when I transferred due to financial situations, um, that environment wasn't there, and I don't thrive in a non-learning environment.
Listen, I mean, and
So
if I got
I went to
the
corporate.
reason the reason I have to pause you there is because so currently, actually, where I'm at now, I teach at the school named the Center for Creative Education, right?
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
the way it works is we actually use an art integrated system. It's K through five.
Mhm.
We use an art integrated system where we'll bring teaching artists like yourself, whether it's a musician, whether it's a sculptor, whether it's a painter, and they're aligning actual math lessons
Mhm.
the actual art. And I think what you just said was incredibly, incredibly powerful because, I didn't even realize, hey, when you're a musician, math might actually become easier, might make sense. It might, instead of just giving you a quadratic equation, you're actually seeing why this adds up to this and why this chair is going to be measured to this. So then that actually is an applied learning
Mhm.
method. And I think that's incredibly, incredibly important. Now, when you get to this corporate work environment, were you having those feelings? Like, were you in a place where it's like, look, the money's good, great, but I'm not, it's not, it's kind of the same stuff. I got to get my creative because I know what it is like to be a creator and like the
Yes.
creative juices out in some kind of
Yes.
way. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I progressed through different positions rather quickly.
Right.
I
So
had to
what
go,
was it?
I
Was it like
yes,
banking?
yes, I went in as a temporary employee because I had a music degree. They hired me right away. And then even though I was doing word processing coordinator, my boss started training me on the financial reporting. So I was doing the same thing as the people who had accounting degrees. And
Oh.
then went into Securities Corp as an accountant. And then I took a lateral move to Huntington National Bank as an accountant. And then I got involved in beta testing with IT. They needed people from that accounting group to do testing. I did that, and then I got pulled into the IT, and then became project management. With PNC, I ended up on the lead person on the
Work again. There you go.
first web-based system deployment for PNC for their commercial credit lending.
Oh man, you can't see
So,
that. I'm actually getting goosebumps on this because I went into college wanting to be a business major. I took
uh-huh.
an accounting class. I said, enough of this. I'm gonna move on to something else. But I never learned it from the perspective of having that creative mindset to where maybe I
Yeah.
would have stuck with it if I could have connected the curriculum to some real life stuff. So, as
Hmm.
you're going through this, and you had kind of briefly touched on, it, I would love for you to kind of circle back there. When did it become to the point where it's like, look, I gotta start my own business? I'm sure we got to give the husband a shout out for, sticking with you and all that. Kind of fill in the blanks in terms of when it's like, look, courage, be you. I want to make sure I get the right name here.
The song's Courage to Be You.
No, no, the name of the company that I want to make sure.
Balance Up Community.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, balance of community. When did
So
that happen? I want to make sure there was a name at
over time, I mean, I'm going to jump back to my years at Huntington National Bank in Ohio, actually, because at that time I was still falling a lot, had been 16 years, and
And see,
it,
by the way, Ohio State, you see, we can say the name Ohio. We are all right. We're mature enough to say Ohio, okay? We don't, that team, all that. We actually say Ohio. But I just have to get that off. We're in football season when we're recording this, so might be a little edgy.
yeah, I did tease my boss a lot with Ohio State versus Go Blue.
Right.
So one day said something like, "Oh my gosh, my knee is really acting up today," and this woman I worked with started laughing, and then she said she all for a couple years had thought I was going home and drinking at lunch because I would come into work, I would fall, and I
Oh,
would kind of
because
laugh
you would be
because
all right.
yeah, she would see me falling and I was trying to hide this unhideable stuff. So I would laugh a little bit, laugh it off.
Every day
So, and
of
it was fine.
communication. But
Yes,
anyways, we're
yes.
gonna start on that.
So and this plays a lot in because it's that trying to hide the reality and we're denying it to yourself. And then you just keep getting yourself into a bigger and bigger and bigger mess. Like there's times to push through, but it's not all the time. And then at fast forward PNC, I know, well, no, this is a Huntington too. There were times I was leading a meeting. I was in charge of the credit card system and I would have a migraine so bad. I would be in tears, lights out. I'm leading it. I'm having somebody else take my notes.
Mm,
I would go get sick, come back, continue leading in tears, just because it just feels like someone's killing you, but I could still bring my focus through there. And
mm,
I don't recommend that to anybody. I have a very stubborn side. I would not do that to myself now, but so there's everything that's kind of good has its downside. So that growing up, pushing through everything got to a point where it became very unhealthy for myself.
right, right.
So I kept trying to push through. And then 4 days after our honeymoon, I took a bad fall on ice, which doesn't happen here in Florida. And I sustained very severe back and neck injuries that did not get diagnosed. I broke my ankle, that got diagnosed. So I just got to the point where I couldn't bathe myself. I couldn't get dressed by myself. I was struggling to make my coffee, like or breakfast. Even though I'd have the same breakfast, there were days where I had to like, okay, get a piece of toast, put it out, get an egg. I couldn't do two things at once. And the same with getting dressed. I'd have to go get an article of clothing, get the other. I just could not process it. So that's really, really frustrating when you're used to being super efficient and productive.
And independent. Like in your situation, you have you're independent. You grew up with that.
Yes, very independent. Yes.
Yes, and
Yes.
I have to speak on that, especially from the man's perspective, because it touches on what a real relationship actually entails. It touches on
Hmm.
marriage, partnership. It is not the convenient stuff that you see on social media. I
No.
just kind of putting myself in his and just understanding how difficult it must have been for him
Yeah.
to really accept that day in and day out. So we got to give him props for, sticking there and taking care of you because one of the things that I remember playing football, our coach would always tell us like, we want to prepare you as men for when your wife gets sick or when there's a situation at
Hmm.
home where you just may have to figure it out. So, kudos to him for adjusting through all that.
Yeah,
You just don't plan
absolutely.
that kind of stuff. And a lot of you kids out there, a lot of you little youngies out there, you think it's a game. Listen, I'm telling you right now, biggest damn commitment you're going to be making, and you need to make damn sure you're making the right decision. So,
Yes. And I want to add to that at this point, we've been together 18 years. And that did lead to challenges.
it does.
So, it put him into a caregiving role, which he is by nature. So
Mhm,
that became part of identity.
mhm,
So it's important in that kind of situation, or no matter what your personality, I think it is a lot of strain
mhm.
to be talking with somebody and getting like really making sure you're taking care of yourself so you don't lose your sense of self if your partner is in that situation. On the same token, for the individual going through it, you might be in a point of just getting through day to day and surviving at that point, maybe barely, and not in that thriving point, but also realizing that it's easy to lose that sense of self. And sometimes you got to get to the point of fighting to get it back.
Right. And I mean, you saying that it goes right into that building balance to empower. So
Hmm.
walk us through this, man. How did you get your first client? How did you start it? What made it so now it's like now we're no longer in Pittsburgh, we're in Florida. I see the sunshine behind you. We're recording this first week in January. Walk us through when you decided to start it and how you're able to make it something that you're able to do full time.
When I left the corporate world, gave my 5 week notice, and I was a mess. I was such, my body was a mess. I
Right.
still had all these things I wanted to do. So I committed to spending 6 months on my well-being the best I knew how.
Hmm.
And that's when I didn't have a name for it then, but I fired all my doctors and I put together my own team, which I now call your dream team,
Hmm.
to like, where are the areas I need to help? What are different ways I can look at this? So this is the start of the work I do now, of the power of I can, of self-awareness. But what I did, I was struggling. So it was like, what can I do if it's 2 in the morning and I can work for 2 hours? So I started with essentially was a virtual assistant in 2008. Wasn't well known. And I got my first client through an online site with RFDs. It was a client, Ireland,
Mhm.
rolling out a new printer system and selling it to businesses.
Hmm.
And I had the tech background to know about the spool language and that kind of stuff. So I did market research for them. And that very quickly, so for years, I worked mainly with people from California because it took me so long to get my body moving in the morning. So 11 o'clock my time, I've had a few hours to work on getting mobility, letting the pain go away. That it was 8 o'clock their time. So it was a wonderful, wonderful fit and more laid back than the East Coast was too.
Uh,
So that's how I got started in business. And I quickly grew, um, quickly grew to the, um, and as a result of growing too quickly without having the strong enough business foundations or business knowledge myself, is I got myself in more health mess again.
hmm.
So I took a 3 month pause. And by the third time, this is all in the first 5 years of business, I agreed to create custom training program for staff at Duquesne University. They had approached me. I did it and it was successful, but my health went tanked again. So I wanted to grow my business more. I wanted to kind of up the clientele. At this point, I was a marketing business, and I wanted to pay a sales consultant like $10,000 to get really good sales training. And at the end of the consult, he pointed to a poster on the wall that had a triangle: mind, body, spirit. And he said, look, your mind and your spirit are great, but until you learn how to take care of your body, your health, you're never going to achieve the success you desire. I was like, wow. And he suggested I like shut down for 6 months. I went home, talked with my husband again, and did. And it ended up being a year. I transferred my clients to a peer. I prefer peer over competitor. It's work, work together. You can support each other and everybody wins. So my clients were well cared for. And I really, really started to figure things out that year.
Mhm.
So 5 years later, after leaving, I really started to saying, like, I got to really listen to my body. I've been doing it, but I got to take this deeper.
Mhm.
So I rebranded as the small biz shop, the marketing business I had, and opened a storefront with hands-on training and stuff. And that gave, at this point, I learned to manage my growth cycles.
Right,
I learned to make sure I had systems in place. I learned to make sure I had some backup plans for if I had some health condition that flared,
right.
I had a solution or people to go to help me out. So I started building a team. So all these kinds of lessons eventually came into how to build your business to support your health and well-being. And when you do that, you leave space for healing.
Right.
So if you're in this constant cycle of fight, 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 pushing yourself, you're not giving your body a chance to heal. You're not giving yourself the space to come up with solutions that are going to help you. You're not, you don't have the time or energy to reach out and build that dream team.
Mhm.
So that's all the work that progressed into the Balance Up community. All those lessons as 13 years of entrepreneurship on my own prior.
So, if just in case anyone's listening, what is the thing that your ideal client is going through, And what's the result that they're going to see after they've worked with you? Because what you laid out,
Mhm.
incredible, like it's a lot. That's an actual anthropologist going through firing doctors, hiring doctors,
Yes.
building the business, and then realizing that she still needed some help. I mean, what you laid out was absolutely amazing and absolutely perfect. But now, as a client, if they're listening in that wants to work with you, what exactly are they going through so they'll
Yeah.
know, hey, the result is going to be what?
There tends to be a few one of three key situations somebody might be experiencing. One could be they've had health challenges, they know it, and the chronic health challenges just kind of insidiously come in and take over your life. And then just one day you kind of go, whoa, this just is,
Because they've
it's
been ignored,
overtaking my
they've been
life.
ignored for so long, and I hate to actually bring this up.
Mhm.
I was listening to the Notre Dame coach. Jesus, it's completely what is it? I
I
just
can't help you with the name.
oh the name it just Marcus Freeman, yeah, Marcus Freeman.
Okay.
So he played at Ohio State, and then he went on to the NFL, and he found out in his last year that he had a hard
Mhm.
issue, and he had to like retire right on the spot. And what they were saying was, how could you have played for so long and then find out by the time you get to the NFL you have a situation with your heart? And I think it's a lot of what you're saying to where these chronic illnesses that a lot of us don't pay attention to because we're so in survival mode, go, 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 that by the time it catches up to you after a while, it's like, geez, now you gotta
Yes.
play catch up. So,
Yes, it becomes your normal so slowly
yeah.
that sometimes it's hard to recognize. Other people might be recognizing if they haven't seen you for a while, or you might have a good day and think, "Oh, I'm okay," and then the next day is bad. So you can get into what I call the cycle of setbacks, meaning, hey, good and productive and making lots of progress for a couple of days or a week or whatever, and then, oh my gosh, I'm in bed, or I'm really in pain, or I cognitively, whatever this person's symptoms are, flare up. So it's up and down, and it's tiring. So you're losing time and money, you're losing opportunities. There's a lot of loss to there, that if we don't step back, we don't get to really address with solutions that can work. Another situation could be an individual who's in the corporate world and realizing, oh my gosh, like it gets to that kind of point, like I can't do this anymore. It's just not working, whether it's burnout or whether it's an actual health issue, physical health issue. It's they know there's something better. They don't know what, might be really scared, but
Right.
looking at that and like, so they're basically looking, how can I start my own business?
Mhm.
Another situation could be somebody has used to being healthy and all of a sudden they have an onset of something quite suddenly. So in this case, I'm not referring so much to like a knee injury, but like one individual for example, suddenly had trouble using her hands,
Mhm.
had trouble walking, was getting really bad vertigo, and could not do her job because she used a camera.
Yeah.
Um, so what do? You're a business owner, and now you're scared, you don't know what's going on, you don't have answers. So in all of those cases, it's slowing down, learning to listen to our bodies
Mhm.
with openness. And I actually go through this process of it's like a 6 hour retreat where or we can break it up, or we're going to sort of like really look at all the symptoms and all the triggers and come out away with the red flags. Like what are those symptoms that when they act up, you cannot function well anywhere near optimally, if at all. So for example, at one point, my top number one red flag was my legs aren't really wanting to go right. It's a struggle to walk.
Yeah.
And as soon as that, so my flare up management plan for that for my business was immediately critical work only for a few days. Because if I pushed it, I might be out, I might lose a client, I might not be able to take a great opportunity. So it might be like, oh, I can't do that. I don't have time. It's like, no, you don't have time not to. so
Right.
so
Right.
it's really easy with these kinds of situations to be hyper vigilant, focusing on everything, or denial. I'm the queen of, and
Yes.
saying, I can push through that, I can do it. Either one's going to get you in trouble. So how do you bring balance? We're going to focus, we're going to find those couple red flags those ones that are causing the most emotional pain, the ones that are causing additional impact to your physical well-being, and those ones that have the greatest financial risk.
Right.
So we're looking at it from that perspective. What's it truly costing you? Or it could even be relationship costs.
Yeah,
And now let's focus just on those.
exactly.
And then we also, so I like to say it's the foundation of you. We're going to work on, and it's also the foundation of your business. So I start out with this assessment that goes through the 7 areas of life to see what impact is your health challenges. And it's confidential because there's no need to know what the health challenge is. It's the impact of how's it impacting your work? How's it impacting your business? What's weak in your business? Where do you need to bring in a stronger foundation?
Mhm.
Is it fear, just regular old fear that we all have, or is it truly the health impact? With this assessment, I can get down to all that information, and then we customize around there.
That's absolutely fascinating because so much ground and so much detail goes in to everything that you laid out. So, when you think about what's next or what you plan on building for the future, can you kind of speak a little bit about, how you see this whole thing playing out? Is it like regular retreats? Do you actually want to get back to having a storefront? Kind of put the vision out there for us.
Okay, there's this place I was looking at this last week. Probably it's like a flip a coin. Am I going to do that or not? I don't think,
Oh man,
because
it's that close, huh?
logically it's not probably the best time. But man, I love that little spot. It's right on the little downtown street.
Oh,
So
I
there's
haven't
that
been
kind of.
there. Actually, so my birthday is on Wednesday. I'm driving out to Panama City tomorrow. So that's my first
Oh,
actually going there. So
oh
that's like
wow.
that one spot of Florida I haven't hit. I've been Jacksonville, Palm Beach, Tampa, all that, but I want to
Yeah.
Panama City.
So I say I started this business officially in 2019. And I said I had like a 10 to 20 year plan. So I'll be rolling these items out forever and adjusting based on what people benefit from the most. But I've gone through extensive training as a compassion cultivation teacher at the Compassion Institute, which is created out of Stanford University. Print Ju Simpa Jupe. I am like pulling a blank on his name. Oh my, I'm so sorry. The Dalai Lama's right hand
Up to me,
English.
actually.
Thupten Jinpa was the primary author of. So it's a very intense year-long training program. So I will be doing my practicum for that 8-week compassion program as a certified teacher.
Okay.
So once I do my practicum, I'll be fully certified. So I'll be bringing more of the mindfulness to the work, because it helps us. And how does that play into business? Well, when we're able to be present and listen objectively without judgment, being more kind to ourselves, then we can work to come up with the solutions so that we can,
Mhm.
is what it is. So I do have two books I want to write. They will not be this year. I'm more in the process of building out activities,
All right.
a combination of free and low cost activities that people can participate on, working on these skills around self-awareness and so forth.
Well, I am here for it, man. I am super, super glad we were able to get this done, man. This has been, I mean, listen, from me as an author and an educator, and again, a teacher, someone that uses the game, I see so much creativity that gets thrown away, in my opinion, and I'm always, always trying to emphasize that. And as you listeners know, especially you regular listeners, you guys already know, this is what we do every single day. There's a new episode every single day. So, all that being said, the way I close out all the shows, Simone, is I want you to use your imagination a little bit. Well, actually, first of all, what's the best way for people to get in contact with you?
You can go to my site at simoneg.net. And again, that's Simone G as in George.net.
Mhm.
I also, if they're looking to build your team, to support your well-being, your business, to figure out what that first need is, there's a short guide to walk you through adding that first person or resource source at balanceupyourdreamteam.com.
Yeah, I saw that. And all of that will be included in the show notes as well. So, final thing I do to close out all the shows is I want you to use your imagination a little bit. You are back to being, I'd say, maybe the 5-year-old girl. You're struggling with health. You're seeing your dad go through that, what, 5 brothers and sisters. So you're in that steel time. Pretend that that version of you is in the Zoom room here. Give her some words of encouragement, and we will officially close.
I think I would say, you know what? It's going to get bumpy, but have fun with it. Still, share the love with yourself, share the love with others. That's really what matters, how we show up each and every day with the impact we have in sharing our sense of being or love with others. It's the best thing we can do.
That's it, man. And as but if you're first time around here, the reason I close out with that question is because I want to be directly talking to you. If you are going through that again, do not take this very moment for granted. Do not take ever let a day go by in which you're taking for granted the fact that you're here and the fact that you're healthy and the fact that you're able to do whatever it is you want to do. Don't take it for granted. So all that being said, oh wait, did you want to add something?
I wear a bracelet just simply says Simone lives as a reminder to be grateful for every day, no matter what.
Amen to that. Amen. And I'm glad you got that one in too. So, fellow teammates, continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.